obviously, speculation talk out there. Do you have any clarity on where this might go in terms of you coming back next year?
No comment. You said you wanted to finish the season strong. How did today relate to those goals?
Obviously the loss, so that's not strong, right? You want to win 3 in a row and win at home in front of your crowd.
Welcome to the Put On Waivers Media Group, home of the Put On Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
And welcome everybody to the glorious episode of the Put On Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting at the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. PORSPS, my Twitter handle, and Ryan Holmes is RHOLM22. Also catch me out there on Blue Sky as well. As of right now, this moment, Antonio Pierce is still the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. Ryan, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. We can finally put this season in the rearview mirror. Don't have to make excuses anymore. We'll see what happens here over the next couple of days. I don't expect anything super quick. If I heard correctly, I don't believe teams can do in-person interviews with teams that are with coaches that are currently with teams until after the divisional round. So it's going to be 2 weeks before you can even start interviewing people. You can interview obviously coaches that weren't in the league, hence Mike Vrabel, Ron Rivera. You've heard Rex Ryan's name out there with the Jets as a potential candidate. But if the Raiders are looking to make a move, it's not going to – if it does happen quickly, they still can't talk to anybody really for 2 weeks outside of Mike Vrabel and a few other names.
So if the 2 games that the Raiders played prior, beating the Jags and beating the Saints, had people thinking that maybe they were close to a Denver or close to a Kansas City or close to a Los Angeles Chargers. I think today was the Jimmy Fly Snuka off the top rope to let them know that you are not on that level, right?
Yeah, we got to see the Raiders play a team that had something to play for. They weren't at full strength either. Their offensive line was in shambles. They were moving guys around, plugging guys in. The backup right tackle goes down. And they handled the Raiders fairly easily. They were up 21 points in the fourth quarter. Again, Antonio Pierce in 15 out of 17 games was down by double digits. He was down by double digits in every game, all 6 in the division. That's hard to do. And for people that are saying, well, the Raiders played hard and they were competitive, they were not competitive. They lost 9 games by double digits, and again, they were down by double digits in 15 of the 17 games. The only 2 games they weren't were Mac Jones and Spencer Rattler. And I ask you this, if Derek Carr and Trevor Lawrence played in those 2 games, the Raiders would have the number 1 pick right now because they would have lost both of them.
Yes, they would. They would have. And it's just, listen, I don't even know over the last 2 years how the Raiders got so many games with backup quarterbacks in it. I don't know. I just don't know how they did it, but they did it the day that's basically where the majority of the wins have come from. They're not in a good spot. It's really just kind of, it's a mess right now as far as like, the whole thing with AP, and we'll see if he actually does lose his job here. There's so many stats and there's so many things that we could talk about with AP. I just don't know how you bring him back, especially if it's a 1-year deal. Who are you going to get to be a coordinator to come in for a 1-year deal on the offensive side or the defensive side? I don't know what you do, but what are your thoughts about the Raiders and this, how they should handle the situation? Because it seems pretty clear to us what should happen, but I mean, for Mark, things get cloudy for Mark.
Well, I'll look at it this way. For me personally, I would move on. I don't think Antonio Pierce showed anything in his 26 games as the head of the Raiders. He wasn't able to put a staff together. Remember, he fired his basically offensive staff 9 games in. He's not a play caller. He doesn't have a lot of experience. His game management's not very good. Did the players play hard for him? Yes, but last time I checked, I watched the Patriots game today. They played hard for Gerard Mayo. The Giants played hard for Brian Dable today. The Jets played hard for Jeff Ulbrich today. So all these guys should keep their jobs. We need to have a higher standard as Raider Nation. It shouldn't be just play hard, baby. It's just win, baby. And I get it. The roster was depleted, but the Raiders didn't beat any good teams other than the Ravens this year, and they weren't competitive in any games. They beat the Browns, the Jaguars with Mac Jones, and the Saints with Spencer Rattler. And I was going back and forth with a guy the other day, and like here's the list of the quarterbacks AOC and essentially AP has beaten. Like he beats backup quarterbacks. He's Mac Jones, Spencer Rattler, Daniel Jones for one quarter before being replaced by Tommy DeVito, Zach Wilson, Easton Stick, Jared Stidham. You could throw in Patrick Mahomes. He beat Patrick Mahomes. You can throw in Lamar Jackson. He beat Lamar Jackson. And then the other guy he beat was Deshaun Watson, who's been a shell of his former self. So, and basically, what is he, 9-17? So in 26 games, he's beaten 2 legitimate quarterbacks. He's beaten 2. It's funny how Raider Nation said this team had all this talent. They were a playoff team, and we weren't on that boat in the preseason. And all of a sudden, this team has no talent. And Tom Telesco set him up to fail. Like you can't have it both ways. And for the people that say he didn't have a quarterback, I'll agree with that. He didn't, but he's a big Aiden O'Connell fan. So I'm sure behind the scenes he was pushed for Aiden O'Connell. And as I've mentioned to you, there is no way on God's green earth that a general manager goes out and signs Gardner Minshew on day one of free agency if the head coach isn't on board with that move. There is no way that happens.
That's 100% true. But also with Gardner Minshew, I've seen Gardner Minshew play full seasons with teams. I never saw him lose 10 games in a row. Like, I mean, he's bad. He's not a great quarterback, but he's also not the guy who loses 10 games in a row, like or part of that many games in a row in the loss column. Like it's just been, it's clear that it is the head coach. Like I don't know. I mean, listen, you don't have to be, you can play close games and not get down by double digits to every single opponent. Like every single opponent, they were down. They were embarrassed in this division this year. Like every game in this division was not even competitive. So you got to start within the division itself, and they couldn't compete there either. So there's just a lot of drama with. There's a lot of drama with it, and I don't know. People get really emotional about it, and like we're emotional about it too. We're fans of the team, but like we're not so emotional about it where we can't see what's right in front of our face. And to me, him wearing. That's an embarrassment for a head coach to be wearing a player's jersey into a stadium. I'm sorry. Like you are the head coach of the team. You can't be wearing your best player's jersey going in. You're not a fan. And then as the camera goes by, you pull your hoodie up to make sure that it says people can see that it says Bowers. You can't be on Instagram liking posts from fake accounts when they're talking about Devontae Adams. Like he's done so many things that like. And then not only that, even if he did those things and the teams are playing good, but they're not even performing on the field. On top of that, like it makes it even worse. Like he's not mature enough. He's not good enough to handle this position. It's just clear.
I think the issue Mark Davis is going to run into though is does he want to give him another year? Because at this point, it doesn't look like Mike Vrabel. The Raiders would be his top choice. So it looks like he may end up somewhere else. The Jets and the Patriots will have an opportunity to hire him before the Raiders could. And I don't think he would choose the Raiders over the Patriots job because they have Drake May, they have a high pick, and they have more money than the Raiders, and he played there, and he knows the ownership group. So if the Patriots want him at all, I expect him to end up there. I don't think they're in play for Ben Johnson. I honestly don't think they're in play for Liam Cohen either, who's a big name that's been thrown around. I think he has ties to other teams. He has ties to the New England area as well. Growing up there, going to school there. I think the problem, again, is if you bring AP back, Patrick Graham is pretty much out the door. If you saw Patrick Graham.
Yes, he's over. It's over.
Basically, if you watched his press conference last week, he didn't want anything to do with it. He didn't want to answer any questions. He turned down a contract extension. He's probably still mad that AP got the job over him, which is fair because I think most people in that situation would also hold some grudges towards the person that got promoted over them when they were their boss and essentially hired them. I, as much as Raider fans want to be excited about Scott Turner, the Raiders actually averaged less points under Scott Turner than they did under Luke Getsy. I don't think people want to talk about that.
Yeah.
They averaged 17.9 points under Getsy and Minshew, and 17.6 under basically AOC, Ritter, and the Scott Turner. So it's not even a foregone conclusion Scott Turner is going to come back, because he's been mentioned as the offensive coordinator to go with Bill Belichick to UNC. So do you trust Antonio Pierce to hire a whole new offensive staff, an offensive coordinator, and a defensive coordinator? On top of that, he's going to be a lame duck coach. So what kind of coaches are going to want to come coach with him? Knowing that he has 1 year left on his deal and there's no quarterback in place. So if I'm Mark Davis and I want to bring Antonio Pierce back, I'm almost forced to give him a contract extension, as much as it hurts to say that, because no one's going to come work with him on a 1 year deal. The time is now that if the decision is not to keep him for next year, for 2025, the decision that's in front of Mark Davis is, do I think he's the guy for the next 3 or 4 years? And can he handle a rookie quarterback if we go get one in the next year or two? And can he build a staff? And I think he's pretty much answered all those questions negatively. He can't build a staff. He fired his offensive staff 9 games into the season. I don't know if he can handle a rookie quarterback. I wouldn't trust him to at this point. So there's a lot of questions in front of Mark Davis here. And then this is not the most attractive job out there. New England, Chicago is out there. The Jets is a big market. They have better
Jacksonville
defense. Jacksonville, if it opens up, is going to be a better job.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Jets is a better job, because you're about to lose Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers, and you basically have to start over. Although you have Garrett Wilson, you have Breece Hall. The Saints is not a better job, so the Raiders, I think, is a better job than that. But then you're also looking at the division. You're staring up at Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, Jim Harbaugh, and Justin Herbert. And then now you have Sean Payton and Bo Nix. Whatever you want to think about Bo Nix, he's better than anything the Raiders have right now. So you're behind them as far as your head coach and your quarterback. And the run it back crew, there's no sense in running it back in 2025 with AP and Aiden O'Connell. And you heard AP at the press conference today say, we need an upgrade at one position. Everyone basically knows what that is. So I don't know where the Raiders are going to find the quarterback. Was
that kind of throwing Aiden under the bus in front of everybody? That's kind of like, hey, but this whole thing, the thing that worried me about AP coming back was, I thought it was interesting that Adam Schefter in his little like safer out thing today that him and Mort used to do, rest in peace to Chris Mortensen. He specifically mentioned during the AP portion that they didn't get AP a quarterback, and it's not, and that shouldn't be his fault. But you can say that about a bunch of the guys who were every other coach, but he specifically said it for AP. That's language that AP stands use, and that's language that AP's camp uses. So that's really interesting. So it makes me think that like he could still get fired, because that's not coming. It sounds like that's more coming from the AP side than it would be coming from Mark Davis' side. But like this whole like didn't get a quarterback thing, like he had one window to try to get one, and he chose not to get one. So it is what it is. I mean, the only thing they can do right now, as I look at the Raiders staff right now, would be to like pick people from the staff to be offensive or defensive coordinator, because the current staff, because like you can't like nobody's coming here for 1 year. Like you said, you have to give him a 2-year extension. And does Mark really want to do that? Mark can't act cheap. Dude, the team, you just sold a bunch of shares of your team, and you are liquid as hell. You got mad paper right now. Like everybody knows you got big pockets right now. So for you, if you can't try to like be tight with the coach, with the purse strings when it comes to the coach coming up here, because it wouldn't make no sense. Like you have to show that if you want to be a serious football team, you have to show that you're willing to put some money where the mouth is, and like you got to pay a coach and a staff to come in here and actually win games.
See, I see it a little differently. I don't think he is cheap when it comes to that. He basically jettisoned. He paid Gruden off. He jettisoned JMD and Ziegler when he could have easily sat on him for another year or two. He's paying them a ton of money. It was like $85 million to go away. So I don't think him not moving on from AP has anything to do with him not willing to invest in that. I would criticize his investment cash-wise on the roster because the Raiders spent the least amount of cash of any team in the league this year. So he wasn't afraid to spend the money to get rid of McDaniels. He didn't spend the money to upgrade the roster in certain key areas. And then you start asking yourself, just going back to that, if AP stays and he has to hire an offensive staff and a defensive coordinator, and he's on a lame duck deal, what free agents are going to want to come here? What free agent's going to want to sign a 4 or 5 year deal to come play when he knows there's a likelihood? Then unless they get the quarterback right away, that he's out of here. It could be middle of next season. So, like, we're not just talking about the development of the quarterback. We're talking about attracting free agents, offense coordinator, defense coordinator, building staffs, and AP on a lame duck year can't do any of that.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. You got we got as far as other jobs go, the Colts are bringing everybody back. The Pats
Dolphins.
have the Dolphins are bringing everybody back. The Pats have fired Gerard Mayo, and it looks like possibly that's where it seems like. I mean, if you are Vrabel, you have ties to that organization. You have ties for the organization because you played there, and then you also have the young quarterback. They might be able to get more capital. The way Joe Milton was slinging the bub rock today, they might be able to get capital from that. Who knows? But they have a lot of money, so it's a better job than the Raiders for sure. They also have that pedigree of winning as well too. So we'll see what happens there as far as that goes. The Jets, Ron Rivera he's part of the Rooney rules because it was in person. They got to do one more in person thing before they get there, so before they comply with the Rooney rule. Interesting to see whether or not that's a job for, like, Aaron Glenn played there. So if Aaron Glenn is it's probably made the Jets or the Saints for Aaron Glenn, as far as that goes, as far as the head coaching carousel goes. Go ahead.
I think when you start looking around the league, you're going to start to hear a bunch of names for these openings early, like in the next couple of days. But remember, they can't actually interview guys in the league. And I think that the league's going to take a stance on this, that if you go out there and do a Ron Rivera and a Leslie Frazier, and then you hire Mike Vrabel within the first week of the offseason, before even getting an opportunity to interview guys from other teams, I don't think the league's going to look very, very happily at that. They pushed back this interview process for a reason. They want it to play out. They want it to go a little bit longer. They want more guys to have an opportunity. And if teams just try to skirt that and be like, we're just going to interview a couple people that aren't in the league, which is exactly what the Raiders did last year when they hired Antonio Pierce. They didn't even do a full search, which they should have, but they didn't. We talked about that at the time. Like I said, I don't think the league is going to look very happily upon teams that try to fill these jobs before we get after the divisional round, which will be 2 weeks from now.
Yeah. So have to slow that down and see. I think for the hiring, the teams, they want people to get the experience of getting the interviews. I mean, I think that's part of it, and they also don't want people to just get looked over. I mean, some of these teams know who they want, but they still have to go through the process. So the process is going to be the process. So the Jets have a little bit of a head start because they have a couple of guys who were not in the
league.
In the league, like Rivera wasn't in the league, and then you have and then he was only a consultant with the Browns. So
and his contract ran out, I think last week. Yeah, so he's not under contract with anybody.
Yeah, so long as not under contract, you're good to go.
And Patrick Graham will not be under contract, I believe. And what's the date today?
Yes.
In about 9 days. I think the date's the 14th or the 15th. I think it's the 14th. Patrick Graham will be a free agent. So the Raiders have a lot of decisions to make. I mean, if they run it back with AP, Scott Turner, and they promote like Mike Caldwell, the defensive coordinator, like, come on, Mark Davis. Like, you can't do that. Like, not in this division. Like, if you keep AP's got to go out and get a real defensive coordinator. He's got to go out and get a real offensive coordinator. They have to have some plan to go get a quarterback. They have to be aggressive. Settle and go get, a guy in the second, third, fourth round at quarterback to compete with Aiden O'Connell. You're going to finish fourth place again next year. Like, that can't be the plan. They have to be super aggressive here, no matter what they do in finding the quarterback. I would expect that now that they know that Luke Getsy was the problem in Chicago, maybe they look at Justin Fields to compete with Aiden O'Connell. Like, this whole give Aiden O'Connell a chance is basically BS. He had a chance. He did not beat out Gardner Minshew, who sucked. I don't know why people don't
He's
understand that. And then,
yeah.
like, we just read off the quarterbacks he's beaten. Like, other than Patrick Mahomes, like, Aiden O'Connell hasn't been, and he didn't complete a pass after the first quarter in that game. He hasn't beaten a quarterback worth a damn in this league. I like Aiden O'Connell. I think he's a nice guy to have on the roster. But if you're going to go in to the AFC West next year with Aiden O'Connell against those quarterbacks, you're bringing a knife to a gunfight. Like, what are you doing?
Yes, no question about it. I love the untouchable on reference as well too. AOC, it's you can't run it back with AOC at all. You can't, and AP's lack of experience and I think lack of just knowing guys around the league to get them to come play for.
There's no network.
There's no network. You have that league is all about network. As soon as somebody gets hired, they pretty much have their staff and everybody who's coming with them already intact. They know who the linebacker coach is going to be. They know who the defensive back coach is going to be. They know who the coordinators are going to be. And it doesn't help the fact that AP has never called plays because so he can't even take over the defense if he wanted to. That's what he really should have probably did, was take over the defense. But it is what it is. But they were just. I mean, yeah. They were atrocious today. I mean, they were atrocious today. I mean, they were just. I mean, how many games can you sit there and watch them being atrocious? And like Mark says, he doesn't know football, and I know what I don't know, but like who's good and who's not good. And if you watch the Raiders play,
does he though?
Like, how do you not? Like, you know what I'm saying? I know he's more of a basketball fan than a football fan. I know he's looking by his moves over the last several years, Ryan. He wants to just give it to somebody so they can just run the football side. It's clear, and I respect that. But like, you gotta.
There's one problem in that scenario. You can't give it to someone to run away with it if you don't have a quarterback.
Yes,
the quarterback drives everything in the National Football League, and that's what the Raiders have never figured out. So
they won't.
Until they figure that out, Mark Davis is just going to keep hiring coaches over the next couple of years.
And they're going to keep saying it's going to be the same thing every year because they won't have a quarterback. I mean, they just won't. They won't take one. They just won't take one. And even now, with the 6th pick right now, there's not going to be a spot for them to take one here because you look at where they are. So the 6th
top 3 teams all need quarterbacks.
The top 3 teams need quarterbacks. So we're looking at take a quick pick at Tankathon real quick. Titans 1, Browns 2. The Browns could take the Titans could take a quarterback. The Browns
Giants are 3, right?
The Giants are 3. So no quarterback's gonna get by 3. And then you got New England. The worst thing that happened was New England winning today because then maybe the Raiders could have been a trade partner with New England, but that's not going to happen. Jacksonville has a quarterback, and then you got the Raiders at 6. So you might end up with a suite like a Abdul Carter or Will Johnson or people like that, and like it helps build a roster. Mason Graham, but like it's still not going to be. It's not going to help you, get over the hump because he's not a quarterback.
And I love Brock Bowers, but having said that, do you think that Chicago, Washington, New England, Atlanta, right now would rather have the quarterback they took or Brock Bowers? I think they all would prefer to have the quarterback.
Yeah. Did you see Penix today?
Yeah, and I love Brock Bowers. But at the end of the day, the Raiders won 4 games, and he set every record possible. Like, it doesn't move the needle enough to take best player available at that point. And the Raiders may be in a spot this year to do that. And there's a lot of people that have been messaging me. Cleveland won't take a quarterback. Cleveland absolutely should. They do have Deshaun Watson for 2 more years, but it's a sunk cost. They can't get out of it. But what better time to go out and get the next quarterback, or even the one you want to play this year, because you can just put Deshaun Watson on the bench for all they care.
Yeah, there'd be no rush. There'd be no rush.
A quarterback, nothing.
Yeah.
When they can't go sign a free agent quarterback to battle with Deshaun Watson. The easiest thing for them to do is take a rookie who's on no money, and then boom, you already have that replacement in house. You can sit him for a year if you want. You can play him right away if you want. They don't care at all about Deshaun Watson. And Deshaun Watson's only there because of the contract, and the minute they get out of the contract, they're going to.
Yeah, I mean, there's no they're in a situation where they can just play the Watson and just be like, hey, there's no rush for that young quarterback to play. You know what I mean? And then maybe if Watson plays great, then Watson plays out his contract, and then you have that young quarterback take a spot. If he doesn't, then a year later, you hand over the reins. But yeah,
So you're saying it's smart for teams like Atlanta to take a quarterback when they didn't really need one because they were in position to do it. When Minnesota did it, and now look what the situation there, and they're probably going to keep them both next year. And Cleveland should do the same thing. The Raiders over, they can't figure out how to get one, and there's all these other teams that are hoarding too.
I mean, we didn't even listen. I don't think what Joe Milton did today is. I don't think that's anything. I don't think it's anything that's sustainable. I think it's a bona fide exhibition game. But they didn't even
It's fun to watch though.
It was fun to watch because he got some serious arm talent. But but they didn't even draft that kind of guy. Like you didn't even draft that kind of player. Like they could have drafted Joe Milton and just said, "Hey, take a flyer on him late in the rounds." Like say, well, why not just do that? They don't even do
they
that.
They drafted
shit.
Dylan Olave, who can't even get on the field over Chris Collier, who they just signed off the scrap heap.
It's crazy.
They drafted Dekamarion Richardson, who gave up, who made Johnston with the Chargers look like Larry Fitzgerald today.
Didn't he have 200 yards receiving today?
He had 187 yards, 13 catches.
You can't make it up. You can't make it up. You can't make it up.
And Patrick Graham just never changed up the coverage and never said, "Hey, maybe we should help this guy out."
Patrick Graham
left the rookie out there to die.
Yeah, we were joking in my Raiders chat saying that Patrick Graham was sitting there saying, "Hey, anybody want to call plays in the fourth? Anybody want to call plays? I'm good. I'm good. I'm out of here. I'm out of here."
I think it was interesting if you watch this game, and I was really paying attention to the defensive line rotation. Charles Snowden played way too much in this game, and there was a ton of times where it was Zach Carter, Jonah Lalalu, either Jenkins or Butler, and Snowden were the 4-down linemen. I'm like, where's Chason and Tyree Wilson? Why are they not getting snaps in this game? It made no sense. Why is Charles Snowden even out there? He's done nothing all year other than the sack against Cleveland.
That's it. Yeah, that's this.
Oh wait, he got a DUI, so he did something else this year.
He had DUI and was playing for the Raiders. They
should have cut him. Honestly,
they should have cut him. Yeah. With the history of that and this team, they really should have cut him. That was crazy. And then Raider Nation, I know you're frustrated. I know whatever, but I gotta tell you, man, Justin Herbert doesn't suck. So stop tweeting that. John Harbaugh.
I saw so many of those tweets in the first half.
No Harbaugh, who coaches in the National Football League, sucks. They both are good. They both are good head coaches. I mean,
Justin Herbert threw 3 interceptions the entire season. 3. Aiden O'Connell should have thrown 3 today.
Jesus, I mean, even the last touchdown pass to the Black Bowers could have been picked off. So I don't know. I mean, and listen, I saw an interview with Harbaugh the other day, and he was talking about the temptation was huge for him to take Bowers, but they were he said he had to stay with the line because he just said I got to stay with the line and find weapons later on. He has a quarterback and you got to protect him. So I mean, I'm not sure. I think at some point in this game, Herbert had more rushing yards than the Raiders did. They're supposed to be
on that one run. Yeah,
you're supposed to be ground and pound.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting as we get into next year and we see what this defensive line looks like, because that is the one thing the Raiders have potentially hang their head on next year. If Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins is healthy, if they can bring Adam Butler back, and then they can figure out what to do with Kuntz and Chason and Tyree Wilson, and maybe they add another guy in the draft. I see a lot of fans out there that say, bring back Kuntz and Chason. And I look at it this way. I think they're both going to be on 1-year deals next year. They want prove-it deals. If I'm the agent for either one of those guys, I don't want them. I'm not going to have one of them resign if the other one does. So if Malcolm Kuntz resigns and he's taking a bunch of snaps and I'm Chason's agent, why do I want Chason there as well?
Yeah.
I want a path where I can start and go get 8 to 10 sacks and hit it big in free agency in 2026.
Yeah.
The only way I see them both coming back is if there's just no market for Malcolm Kuntz or Chason, and they really did like it here. It's hard for me to envision a path where they both come back to the Raiders. So the Raiders are going to have to pick which one they want, and hopefully I still prefer Kuntz. I think Kuntz is a better player. Chason's got one move. He's basically
Yeah.
discount Ngakwe. Like he's basically got one move. He's got that double arm swipe where he gets around the
Discount.
corner, but that's it. That's all he does.
Okay.
That's the only pass rush move he has.
I love that one. So there has been conversation on Twitter. I know you were away from it. I'm so sure you saw it, but so some people are on team trade Max Crosby. Some people aren't.
Not.
You are not on team trade Max Crosby.
I will die on that hill. You do not trade Max Crosby.
And I think because like I can see both ways, but like I think that you're not paying a quarterback right now anyway. So
which is why I said they should have re-signed Jacobs last year. Because if you're not paying the quarterback, keep as much talent on the roster as you can.
Exactly. And then so for me, it's like why not just trade Max Crosby? I do think that what I was gonna say. But
I think the problem you get into with the trade Max Crosby is you're not going to be able to replace him. They got lucky to find him after letting Khalil Mack go, but if you can get 3 first-round picks, I would consider it. But no team is going to offer 3 first-round picks. You're going to get a first and like maybe a third. Like no one's even going to give you 2 first-round picks. I don't think. Like I value him way more than a first-round pick and maybe a third-round pick. I would need 3 first-round picks even to start the conversation, and then I still probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah, no, I
would just give him a contract extension and give him a fat bonus and bring him back and lock him in.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, so I just want to see him with the new head coach, with a grown up in the room, and just have him not play 500 more snaps than everybody else. Like I want the snap count to come down because I just don't. I know that he is still the best. I just don't want. I think it's part. I think it's part of the reason why he starts off so fast in these seasons, and then towards the end of the year, like it just ends up he's just playing on these with these injuries. I mean, I just want to see that happen. But like, yeah, I mean, if you're not paying the quarterback, then to me, it doesn't make any sense. It just really doesn't make any sense.
I think with Max, it's a mindset, and he wants to be out there, and he's a leader, and he wants to be on the field every play. When you said that, like Cal Ripken popped in my head. Like Cal Ripken had that huge streak, but like, was it the best thing for the Orioles for him to play every day for 2,100 or how many every day? I think it was 2,184. I could be wrong. It was a big number, but like, was it beneficial for him to play every game of every season for all those years? Or would it have been better if he took a day off here or there?
Yeah.
You can't trade Max Crosby. He's the face of the franchise. Like he is the franchise. Like
right now he is. Yeah.
You have building blocks in Jacobs, Adams, and Crosby, and you can't a year later have none of them on this roster. He's the only one left. You need to build this team around Brock Bowers, Max Crosby, Jackson Powers-Johnson, DJ Glaze, Colton Miller, Trayvon Merrick. You need to find a way to bring him back and like bring those guys back. So all these Raider fans, again, that I want to point this out again, that say there's no talent on this roster. What do you think this roster is going to look like if they don't re-sign Spillane? They don't re-sign Merrick. They can't bring back Adam Butler. They don't bring back Nate Hobbs because they have no talent. Like then you have literally no talent, and then you're basically the Patriots, and you're going to win 2-3 games next year. Like they have to re-sign almost all of those defensive players, and then hope they can figure out a way to get a quarterback. And then they need to hit on what other draft picks they don't use to move around in the draft and build a little bit of depth. And then they need to go spend the money in free agency on guys that can come in and fit whatever system this team is going to run next year on offensive defense, and then build depth, second, third string guys. They can't afford to run it back next year with DJ Turner, Trey Tucker, and Jacoby Myers being their 3 wide receivers. Like they need a big guy. They need a 6'4" guy in the red zone that can go up and be a 50-50 guy. They need a guy like Mike Williams that can come in and just be a red zone guy and catch the ball down the field.
Drake London, something like that.
They need wide receivers that can be like I love DJ Turner for what he is, but DJ Turner can't be your number 3 wide receiver.
No. So if the draft goes like this: Sanders, Ward, Hunter, Carter, Will Johnson, are you taking T-Mac in that situation? So you have right now you have Mason Graham available, Ashton Dentry available, you have T-Mac available. You got Mikael Williams available from Georgia. Well,
I would look at Will Campbell, the offensive tackle
Offensive
at
tackle.
LSU.
Yeah.
I obviously haven't done a deep dive on any of these guys,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
if, I've always been the believer that if you're going to pick in the top 10 and even in the top 6 or 7, you need impact positions, guys that are going to
Yeah.
be on this roster that if you hit on them, are going to get big paydays 5 years from now. So that's offensive tackle, pass rusher, quarterback,
Yep.
cornerback, and potentially wide receiver. Like outside
Yeah.
of those 5 positions, I love Ashton Genty. I'm not taking Ashton Genty at 6. Not doing it.
Yeah.
I would probably lean Mason Graham, depending on what I can do with Adam Butler. Like if Adam Butler just gets too expensive, and I have an opportunity to add Mason Graham next to Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby, and I can re-sign Kuntz. You have Tyree Wilson. Like I'm building out the defensive line. Or
Yeah, so that me too. Me too.
we don't know what's going to happen with Colton Miller. He's only got 1 year left on that deal. He played better down the stretch. Are the Raiders ready to commit to him for another 4 or 5 years? Or do they want to draft another offensive tackle to have a guy that's ready to come in? Maybe Colton Miller, you can move him for some draft picks, and then boom, you have his replacement. I think Glaze absolutely solidified himself as he's the day one starter next year. I don't think the Raiders need to worry about right tackle. They do need depth at tackle.
Yes,
Now
they
I'm
do.
not taking it. If I'm bringing if Miller comes back and they give him an extension and Glaze is there, then offensive tackle's off the board in the first round. Like I'm not taking a guy at 6 who's not going to be an immediate starter or a guy that's going to fill in within the next year. So then I would go to Mason Graham on the defensive side, or like you said, the wide receiver McMillan out of Arizona, big guy, big catch radius,
Yeah.
red zone. Like the Raiders don't have that on this roster. When they got down into the red zone, they didn't really use the tight ends, which is weird to have those 2 tight ends and not use them. Again, they didn't really get in the red zone all year either. That was a big problem.
Yep.
But as nice as Jacoby Myers is, he's not really a red zone threat. He's not a guy you're just going to throw a 50-50 ball up and throw a fader out to that's going to come down with it.
Yep.
So I would probably lean defensive line and like, again, if they can't figure out the quarterback position, they need a dominant defense. And what better way than to add another dominant interior defensive lineman to play next to Christian Wilkins?
Yeah, we're on the same page as far as that pick goes. Because like if it does play out that way, then I'd have to because I really want I kind of looking at Will Johnson. I kind of like Will Johnson a lot. So like I mean like he would be perfect to fit in. But like if they like. And obviously Abdul Carter might be but who knows, he might blow up the combine. So that would work out. But if those things don't work out, I want defensive and offensive line. I just you have to do that. You have to keep building that up because that's where the game is won and lost a lot of times. One question we did get. Oh, go ahead. You're going to say something.
I was going to say, I think with Johnson, and I was a big Johnson guy last year. He didn't have as good of a year this year. You're starting to hear some chatter that he might not run very well at the combine. Like this might be like a 4.5, 4.55 guy. And if he's not running in the 4.4, like high 4.4s, like I don't think I would take him at 6.
Yeah, makes sense. So the Raiders are probably in the second tier quarterback market. So we're looking at Milroe, Hewers if he goes out, Jackson Dart is already declared, Carson Beck is already declared, and Will Johnson. If you had to, question we had was like, if we had to rank those guys, who like how would you rank those guys? I know we haven't done a deep dive yet, but just of what you've seen so far.
Yeah, I haven't seen I haven't studied tape of any of those guys really.
Yeah,
I do think Milroe, there's some intriguing aspects to Milroe. So like if you went out, let's say they went outside Justin Fields and you revamped the offense and you basically became Baltimore light,
West,
and you did a lot of what Baltimore does. Then you could bring in a Milroe, but you have to completely change your offense. Now that's going to downgrade the impact that Brock Bowers is going to have if you don't have like a drop back passer or a guy that's very accurate. But what they can give you in the running game, time of possession, being able to convert third down, scrambling, getting out of pressure, there is a little bit of intrigue there. But again, the offense coordinator you have to be 100% bought in like John Harbaugh was when they brought in Lamar Jackson. Because if you're not, don't do it. You can't bring in that kind of guy.
Yeah.
Jackson Dart, to me, like it's tough for me to evaluate guys in that Ole Miss offense because it's so spread out. It's very screen happy, a lot of 1-1-1s down the field. Like you're not really reading defenses. Like I remember him at USC. I wasn't a huge fan of him. Like, yeah, he can scramble. He's got some arm strength. Do I think that he's going to be a top 15 quarterback in the NFL? No, I don't. I think that he falls into that maybe starter, probable backup type quarterback. And at that point, I probably would shy away from that. I'm not a big Dylan Gabriel guy. He's a little guy. He's old. He doesn't have a ton of arm strength. He threw the second lowest attempted air yards of any quarterback in all of college last year. Like, they basically just throw bubble screens and short passes and yards after the catch. Like,
Yep.
there's no real upside in that. Like, again, like, he's probably a backup. I've seen a lot of Kellen Moore comps. Like, yeah, take him if you want Kellen Moore. Like, I'm not really looking to do that.
If you want to OC, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, that whole second group of quarterbacks just doesn't really intrigue me. And this is why, like, we were pounding the table last year. Like, we told everyone that the 2025 draft class wasn't very good. I'm here to tell you the 2026 class won't be very good either. I don't think Arch Manning's coming out. I think you're looking at 2027 for him.
Yeah.
So now you're basically looking at the group of guys, the Quinn Ewers, the Garrett Nussmeyers, the Drew Allers, the guys that didn't come out this year because they weren't going to be top 10 picks. Like, that's who we're picking from next year. Like, there's not a stud like sophomore out there right now who's going to be a bona fide top 10 pick going into the process early next year. So the Raiders have to figure this out, and maybe they get aggressive and they make a trade for a quarterback that becomes available, or maybe, like you said, if they bring in competition, maybe it's a Justin Fields. You try to get a guy with talent that can run, that has arm strength. You have to rebuild the offense around him. So it's tough for me to pick which quarterbacks until I know who the head coach and the offensive coordinator are.
Yeah, what style they're going to run.
What are they running? So, like, if you bring in a Milrow or if you bring in a Justin Fields, like, okay, they have to have an offensive coordinator that has a package that can do what those guys do. Obviously, whoever it is has to be able to handle 12 personnel, because the Raiders are going to be a 12 personnel team with the two tight ends they have on the roster. So it's interesting. It's tough to rank those guys. Carson Beck's coming off of Tommy John surgery. I had a little burn for Carson Beck early in the process. I still kind of like him, and they'll be able to get him really late. But is he going to be ready for training camp? Like, how strong is his arm going to be coming off that injury? There's a lot of question marks with him now. If you could take Carson Beck in the 4th, 5th, 6th round and just roll the dice, sure. But, like, that can't be it. You can't start saying, well, he needs 2 or 3 years. He needs a chance. Like, you're just bringing these guys in and keep stacking them until you get the one you want. Like, I'm tired of Raider Nation, like, getting so locked in on mediocre quarterback play that they just think that guy needs 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years to prove it. Screw that. Like, just keep taking him until you get a guy who's good enough to be a top 15 quarterback, and then let's ride. Like, until that happens, this team's not going to be consistent.
They're not. It's just, I mean, it's
like kindergarten.
It's kindergarten. Oh man, Raider Nation.
They don't need participation trophies. Win ball games.
Yeah. A couple of things here, real quick. A couple of news and notes. It did come out that I guess NFL guys are looking at Sarkisian and also Lanning as well from the college ranks as well. So the Lanning is available to talk now if you want to. Thanks to Ohio State. And then
are you sure Sarkisian's agent didn't just tell Adam Schefter to put that report out to get him a contract extension? That's what's happening.
Everything is agent driven. Like I just saw the thing about Kevin O'Connell. Like, you know, like teams might trade draft picks for him.
Well, the Vikings already shot that down today and said
it said no. So
Jay Glazer ran with it for like 20 minutes today. And I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, they're not letting Kevin O'Connell go.
No, they're not. It's not. It's definitely not happening. Definitely not happening. All right. So we got anything else in this madness? So what?
No coaching news yet on Twitter. I just looked.
Yeah, no coaching news. So as of this, I'll get this episode out as soon as possible because I don't want so if it comes out,
we may wake up tomorrow and there's announcement.
Exactly. So we'll see. We'll see about that.
I will add this. I do think it's interesting that teams are coming out and saying we're sticking with our guy, we're sticking with our GM, we're sticking with our head coach.
Yes,
we've seen 2 teams do that already. So like, Mark Davis needs to do something. Either say we're sticking with AP or make a change. Like, don't ride the fence for a week or 2 before you do something.
Yeah, let's not do that. Unless let's not wait for the last team to hire an OC and then end up with Lou Getsy type OCs as well. That head coach gets hired. All right, Red Nation. Another disappointing. We'll do what we can. It's another disappointing season. But
we want the team to win. Trust me.
Yes,
It's
trust
much
me. Trust me.
funner to do when they win.
When they show flashbacks to the last Raider game that I was excited about, the win in your end game against the Chargers, that was fun. That was fun, and now it's like not gonna happen. And now we had nothing to talk about. But we have to play. We got stuff to talk about, but it's not like the exciting stuff.
No,
and it's not. All right, Ryan. You have a great night, man. Take care, brother.
Take care.